Who out there would want scruffy orphans from the streets of Chicago anyway? Only someone who wanted to work us to death, I'd say, just like Melvin told me. And if nobody took me, would I have to ride back and forth on this train east to west and west to east like some eternal traveler, giving rise to the legend of Rodzina the Unwanted, and have my story told around fireplaces, kitchen stoves, and campfires to scare little children? Either way, I was mighty unhappy. I went to the toilet at the back of the car. Through the hole in the seat, I could watch Illinois race by, miles and miles of Illinois. And back in my seat, I bounced and nodded until the rhythm of the train and the whirling of my thoughts had me asleep. When I woke, Mr. Sprott was passing around red jelly sandwiches and apples from big baskets in the back of the car. Lacey was still sleeping, so I took hers too. I ate the sandwiches slowly, letting the sticky sweetness tickle my tongue, but I left Lacey an apple. "Miss Brodsky," I heard someone call. I looked around, and there at the back of the car sat the lady from the orphan asylum, nodding her head at me. I took myself over there. "Yes, miss?" I asked. She frowned, her gray eyes as cold as a February fog off the lake. "It's Doctor." "Doctor?" I'd never heard of a lady doctor. "Really?" "Never mind, sit down," she said, pointing to the seat next to her. I sat. She smelled faintly of soap and freshly ironed clothes. "There are more of you children on this train than we expected. Mr. Sprott is in charge of the older boys, but I am responsible for all the rest, and I cannot do it by myself. So I will take care of the babies," she said, nodding at a heap of children, maybe 2 or 3, nestled all together on the wooden benches in front of her. "And you will look after the other children. Horton, Gertie, Chester Spud, and Mickey Dooley, Sammy and Joe, and Lacey there who is sitting by you. I will depend on you to see that they are clean, fed, quiet, and in the right place at the right time. Shcruff. Dog's blood, as Auntie Manya used to say. I just wanted to be left alone. Why me? Because you are the oldest. Old enough to be in charge of orphans, but not old enough to be on my own? Didn't make much sense to me. I wanted to say, depend on someone else and leave me alone, but I didn't. I didn't want her to hate me, just let me be. I said only, "Yes, miss." "Doctor," she said, looking down at the book in her hand. I turned to go back to my seat and ran smack into someone standing in the aisle. "I beg your pardon, as the convict said to the judge," said a skinny boy with a pale, freckled face. Both of his ears stuck out, his front teeth were missing, and one of his soft brown eyes gazed up to heaven, while the other looked up and down his nose. "Who are you?" I asked, watching his eyes travel here and there, back and forth, never lighting for a moment on anything. "Mickey Dooley, at your service," he said, sweeping off his brown wool cap to expose a crop of orange hair. "Real orange, carrot orange. Orphan, purveyor of Blarney, and a genuine bag of laughs. Nice to meet you." He pointed out the window. "And speaking of meat, holy moly, look at them sheep." A gang of boys standing behind him crowded around the window. "Them's not sheep, they's buffaloes," said Joe. "Moose," said Tubby Chester, smiling his crooked smile. "Antelope," Spud cried, his head full of yellow curls bouncing. Having lived near the stockyards almost all my life, I knew cows when I saw them, but didn't choose to join the discussion. I might have to tend these kids, but the lady doctor didn't say anything about my setting them straight. I stumbled up the aisle and flopped into my seat. At supper time, the train stopped. Some folks got off to eat. Us, we had more jelly sandwiches and apples. It wasn't pig's foot jelly or meat dumplings or sweet cake with raisins, but it was food. My stomach growled like an angry dog. You could hear it right out loud. It had gotten that quiet in the train car, except for the gurgling of Mickey Dooley's laughter and Gertie whining about how her elbow hurt or her toe or her knee or someplace. The rest of us sat silently with our hunger, uncertainty, and jelly sandwiches. Lacey was asleep again, so I finished my sandwich and half of hers and put the apples away in case I was hungry later. I knew I would be. I was always hungry. I loved food. Papa used to say Poles are the only people who write love poems about food. Were I a poet like my papa, I would write about cabbage rolls and tomato sauce, pickled herring, and the jelly donuts we ate each year on Ponchki Day. Supper in the train got underway again. I washed hands and faces and helped Horton and Gertie blow their drippy noses. Because of my brothers, I had plenty of experience with drippy noses and other details of child minding, but that didn't mean I had to like it. I must say I didn't exactly hate it either. I was good with little kids. The lady doctor and I got blankets down from the luggage racks and passed them out, for the car had grown colder. The other orphans huddled together for warmth, curling around kids they would have ignored in the light of day. Some cried out in nightmares, the others whined or grumbled, and I sat silent, wrapped in an itchy green blanket. The gas lamps flickered in the darkness, making shadows dance on the walls and windows of the car. Once Papa's pants froze on the clothesline back of our house, and he made them dance like a puppet. Back in the early years, this was, when he used to laugh and make jokes, before he found there was no place in Chicago for a Polish poet. Americans, he said, heading out one morning to his job at the stockyards, are not a book-reading people. I sighed at the remembering and fell asleep, rocked by the jiggling and swaying of the train.